Yo, Nick, can you tell them about the bell curve? Can you tell them what you said to me? That was the first time I ever heard a white dude say that. What do you think about the IQ thing? This is gonna fucking shake it up.
Yeah, you guys aren't gonna like this, but I just want to preface this by saying this, okay? I of all people, okay? I'm a friend to all people.
That's how you know some crazy shit.
I love black people, okay? I love Hispanics, I love Asians. But
Jidion,
here's
you
the
know
thing.
where this is going. Whenever this starts up like that, you know where it's going.
You know where it's going, okay? And I told Sneeko this, we call this race realism, okay, which is to say that race is real. Like it's not fake, it's not skin deep, race is real. There are different races and there's meaningful differences. And one of the things is that on average, the races have different IQs. And so on average, Asians have the highest IQ, and on average, blacks have the lowest IQ. And that's why I told Sneeko. And no, that's average, okay? I'm not saying black people are dumb. I'm not saying that.
Kinda.
I'm saying that when you
You're kinda
average it
saying
out.
that. You're kind of saying that.
I'm not. I'm saying on average. Well, I'm saying on average. On average, there's differences between the IQs. So I believe there are black geniuses like Kanye West. I think he's a black genius. But there's fewer black geniuses than there are Asian geniuses, as an example.
Okay.
That's. I don't think that's too
So
much.
So I would just ask, why do you think that information is important?
Well, here's why. That's actually a really good question. Because I don't say that like proudly, because I think that actually it's a fact of nature, which is kind of sad in a way. I think human inequality is sort of tragic in some sense. Like you look on TikTok in this example, and TikTok is like the worst. It's like the worst window into human inequality there is, because you could scroll through TikTok and see the most beautiful person ever, rich and objectively beautiful, and they're getting all this fame and all these likes, and then you scroll up and then you see like a deformed person who's like, they have roaches on their wall and they're like, you know, and it's like, that's actually kind of a tragic and sad thing. And anyway, so I think human inequality as a whole is unfortunate, but here's why it matters. When you look at all of the disparities in the United States as an example, you look at income inequality between the races, wealth inequality between the races, and all these other inequalities, people will say, well, if we're all starting from the same place but ending up in a different place, what happened in the middle? Racism, probably, or something. If whites and blacks and Asians and Hispanics are all the same and they all start out from the same, starting point, but they all end up wildly unequal, well, something must happen along the way. Discrimination, racist policies, etc. Well, if people are not starting from the same place, then that would explain how a system which may even have affirmative action or maybe, the opposite of racist would still be producing unequal results. We have to understand this if we want to create policies where the country can be coherent and harmonious and where everybody is treated fairly. So that's my belief. If we want to understand the world, can't understand without understanding the reality of race and what that means.
Got it.
Do you think there's a superior race?
No, I don't. I don't think they're superior people. I think that people are unequal.
Well, hold on, but he thinks some people intrinsically have higher IQ than other people, to be honest. So he would say that on average, all else equal, a white person will be smarter than a black person.
Yes.
Destiny, this is Jidion.
I need to hear Nick say it, because he believes that.
Destiny,
so we're all on the
have
same
you mentioned
page.
Jidion before? Jidion, Destiny?
Hi,
What's up, Destiny?
Okay.
Yeah.
I love stealing your content on stream.
We're just letting you know, on behalf of the black delegation, we've elected Destiny to speak on this matter.
Yeah, thanks, okay, well, before
Don't do any liberal racism, though. You got this.
I'm a huge liberal racist, okay? But I'm racist towards all people, so we're good. Okay, just before we jump into this, okay? I just be clear about who you're talking to, what the goal of the conversation is, okay? Nick has a political movement, a political ideology. His goal is not to sell you truth or to sell you a critical thought process. His goal is to sell you his political ideology. So if he comes across some idea that's contrary to what he believes, or some thought or fact that is contrary to his belief system, he's not going to tell you that, and he's not going to incorporate it into his world. He's only going to give you the pieces of information that he uses to sell his ideology. I think sometimes we're so hungry to talk to people that disagree with us, we think that everybody has valid things to say. Everybody's got valid points to consider, but you have to keep in mind what they're selling you at the end of the day. If I was to have a conversation with Nick about the value of, what do you think about, the soft sciences? What do you think about, psychologists and political scientists, Nick, in general?
Me?
Yeah.
I think there's some validity to them, but I don't put a lot of stock in empiricism.
Sure. So he doesn't put a lot of stock in those things, okay? The bell curve was written by a psychologist and a political scientist. These aren't genetics researchers. These aren't intelligence researchers. These aren't people that did huge dives into meta. It absolutely is true. Charles Murray is a political scientist, and Richard Bernstein is a psychologist. That's fine. We're not talking about, but I'm just saying that the book, The Bell Curve, if that book was about any other topic, you would dismiss it so quickly because of the scientific disciplines that those authors come from. You wouldn't even consider for a second.
That's
but
not
because
true.
It absolutely is true, and you know it. But because you just told me that you didn't put much stock in those disciplines.
I said I didn't put stock in empiricism. I said I don't put as much stock in empiricism as you do, because you believe that everything is attributable to empirical knowledge, that everything should be derived from studies. I don't believe that all truth is derived from studies. I think we could derive truth from experience, and I think we could derive truth from logic, and we could recognize patterns. I don't think that we necessarily need to go and this is what you and Vosh and Hunter Avalon do, is study, show me a source, show me a study. And I think that studies can aid understanding, but I don't think that's the end-all be-all of knowledge. That's what I'm saying. And you're wrong about, if I thought that race and IQ was a wrong argument, I wouldn't push it. I wish it was wrong. I've had my entire life destroyed because I say these things. You think I'm saying these things because it's like doing me a big favor? I'm banned from airlines and banks. I'm under investigation by the FBI, subpoenaed by Congress, in part because I say these kinds of things. So no, I go where the truth leads me. I'm a critical person. If you were to present to me an answer for why, when the Europeans colonized Africa in the late 19th century, they didn't have written language and they didn't have the wheel, and like why that is consistent with everybody evolving exactly the same way and everyone being exactly the same, I would probably be an egalitarian like you. But
no, it's just the idea is that, like, if there's differences between large groups of people throughout all of human history, the default position is to not know. You're the one that's asserting the positive claim of, oh, well, it must be because of biology. But we don't know that. Nobody knows that. There are different, like, indicators that, like, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But to pretend that we have one grand narrative that can explain the differences between all the groups in all of human history, you're not going to find any academic discipline that's going to come together and agree on that. These are all hotly contested topics. That's all I'm saying.
Nick, who
and
do
also,
you think...
when you say, I notice that people like you, sorry, and I'll shut the fuck up. People like you will always say things like, oh, like, you just want to see study. But I'm a man of truth and experience and logic, and I recognize patterns. Bro, a pattern for a human is you have like 2 bad experiences with somebody, you write them off completely. That's not going to get you towards truth with a capital T. That's just going to tell us your subjective frame of reference, right? Like, you might eat like 2, rotten pieces of fish and tell everybody that fish is the worst food in the world. That's no more truthful than viewing a study on something, or it's even less truthful, right? I don't like this. I don't like this hand waving of like all of the empirical data or all of the studies we can do to just say like, oh, well, I have my own experience, because you can go down so many stupid roads with that. Like, obviously, everybody's seen somebody do it.